This wild scene all unfolding in a mill complex on Rand Street. Now, that's right near the Central Falls line.
They were a couple hundred feet away from me, but they were also a couple hundred feet tall. And I've never seen anything like that. Those firefighters saved their lives.
My name is Dave Lawler. I'm a drone photographer and filmmaker living in downtown Providence. Right now we are at the former site of the Conant Mill complex. It just used to be a glorious facade, and now it's crumbled into just a million bricks. So I'm actually adopted from Pune, India, before the age of 2. Came to America by a loving family in Rhode Island. Been living here my whole life. Got to high school. I got into video production at LaSalle Academy, and then went to college for film studies. Did some more like film theories and such like that, and then just been dabbling in just a bunch of different jobs, retail, video production at a radio station, and now I work for the Blackstone Valley Tourism Council doing what I love.
Blackstone Valley Tourism Council is one of the state-designated tourism marketing agencies for Rhode Island. So we represent Rhode Island's Blackstone Valley, which is the northern part of the state. It has 10 cities and towns that run from Burrville all the way down to East Providence. We really work as well to promote sustainable tourism, so bringing in the right type of people, not just a mass tourism to this area, but bringing in the right people, and we do that by just encouraging and highlighting the history and the culture of what Blackstone Valley is. So we've been doing that since 1985, and yeah, I mean, we just love to see people come here and to discover new places. It is a really inviting and engaging place to come and visit.
Before I started working at the Tourism Council, I didn't realize that there were so many mills and just like industrial buildings from 18 and early 1900s. And since working there, it gave me the opportunity just to even go for walks, for work, to take photos, and I stumbled upon this like giant mill complex. And this isn't something that you see in every city and town. Okay, so we are at Conant Mill, JP Coates, over in Central Falls, Pawtucket. I like this place a lot because it was one of the few mill complexes that I went out and explored, and it was like right before the pandemic, like maybe like a couple days before. I was like walking around taking photos of the area just for fun stuff like street photography, and then I came across this giant tower, and it had like a round window and then like kind of like a sloped ceiling. It's really beautiful. Ever since I saw that mill, I was like, wow, that's wonderful. And I was like kind of dabbling into like urban exploring, but around the time I also just got a drone too. But this place is super important to me because it's actually the largest mill factory in the Blackstone Valley, but this place is just a huge thread company, and JP Coates I think still exists, but just the fact that this complex was so huge, it had multiple buildings, and then it had recently, in 2020 of March, got destroyed by a fire.
The majority are now vacant, and all the 8 that caught fire were empty. One of them is the former site of Paramount Greeting Cards, which closed in 2006.
My partner Dave was driving early in the morning in Providence, about 5 or 6 in the morning, and called me and said, hey Al, I think part of Pawtucket is on fire, and it looks like the area of Pine Street. So I turned on the news, and yeah, the whole neighborhood was pretty much on fire. I stood on the corner of Pine and Conant Street and essentially just watched all the mills behind this building burn to the ground.
Years ago, this was the scene of booming business.
All right, so you're probably wondering, who is the founder of Conant Thread? And the answer is Hezekiah Conant. He was born on July 28, 1827 in Dudley, Massachusetts. He was known as a manufacturer and an inventor. He had a lot under his belt. So let's dive in and take a look at the history of Mr. Hezekiah Conant. Hezekiah's early life was split between school and farming. Fun fact, he is descendant of Roger Conant, who founded Salem, Massachusetts. In 1840, he ventured out to Worcester, Mass. and learned the printer's trade. Once he realized he didn't like it too much, he became a machinist. After he studied mechanical engineering, he developed a reputation as a mechanical expert. Over the next several years, he came out with his first patent, a pair of lasting pinchers for shoemakers. became a journey machinist working in Boston and Worcester. And he worked at the Colt firearm manufactory where he assisted Christian Sharp, the rifle inventor. The achievement didn't stop there. He invented and patented the gas check for breech-loading firearms that was adopted by the US and British governments. In 1867 is when Mr. Conant became interested in thread manufacturing. He brainstormed and patented a machine for dress sewing thread and an automatic machine for winding thread on spools. He took this idea and patent and sold it to Willimantic Linen Company in Connecticut. He remained with the mill for 9 years and improved their machines and overall production in the mill. Conant went abroad to study thread manufacturing methods in England and Scotland. It was then, in 1868, Mr. Conant moved to beautiful Pawtucket, Rhode Island, where he organized the Conant Thread Company. It wasn't even a year when he secured the partnership with England's leading manufacturers, J&P Coats Company of Scotland. The company grew with additional cash flow, and when Mr. Conant passed away in 1902 at the age of 74, the mill covered over 40 acres, employed 2,400 workers, and his capital investment was a whopping $5 million. I'm just really impressed of the history of this man and also how much of an impact he had on the American Industrial Revolution at that time. I personally just like mills more because there's a lot of history, and being here, like, we are in the land of Pawtucket, and this is the birthplace of the American Industrial Revolution, so it's something that I personally have been fond of since even like high school, like being a freshman or sophomore, like a sophomore, junior. I remember walking around Providence of the old factories before they were renovated into those apartments, and I did like a music video for someone over in that area, but I was just like, shit, all these like giant structures, these like loft style mills, and I don't know, I just like big, large, empty, and rustic and industrial buildings. And because they're abandoned, that makes it a reason for me to just document them. Like, not to be mean, like I could care less about nicely done condos, because that's just money for people who just invest in those. For me, it's just documenting them before they're lost to anything, while they still have the history, because there's a lot of history. Like, even in that farm mill, it was like built in 1875, and they still have the rounded staircases, the wooden staircases, which you don't see a lot, because I think like in the 1900s they transferred over to like the more industrial cement metal staircases. So you see like something from the 1800s is different than like 1900s, and I like that type of history. Being at the Tourism Council, like, because I was introduced more appropriately to mills by the history, it's like, now I know where they all are. I know where they sit. It's the rivers, the mill ponds, anything with like water is where mills are. So since I learned that from the Tourism Council, I'll go to like Connecticut and follow the Connecticut River, or follow the Branch River, and follow whatever river in New England. And that's like my goal, is to get to visit all these rivers. All right, so there's a lot of mills here in Rhode Island, just through like the Blackstone River and all the other like sub-rivers. And like I've been able to capture all of that, especially through a drone, and just like documenting from the ground. And like long-term goal, like I would like to document as many as I can throughout New England, especially Connecticut, because they have the Connecticut River. Even the Blackstone River going up into like Mass and Worcester, that would be a great spot to go and capture. But also there's like mill areas all over New England, so honestly, like, I'll just like flip a coin and just go to like whatever state I want to, and then just document those abandoned ones. And I'm open to like documenting some of the other ones too, because they still have beautiful facades, especially out in Connecticut. So my goal is to just try to capture as many as I can within, you know, the next couple of years. That's really it. Like, think about it. Like, how many bricks have been put into one of these buildings? It's like so much. And to think that like during the span of like when Slater Mill began all the way up until like the 1870s, it was like 100 years, and all this development happened with masonries. And like, it just fascinates me that all these things, all these buildings were built up within like 100 years to just power the Industrial Revolution. And the fact that like you had like men and women and children working in there, and then you had people coming from all parts of the world to come to America for like that freedom to work and have a job, a secure job or something. But towers are like, they're like the main thing that I focus on when I go to like any of these places. They're really cool because inside the towers are staircases, and the staircases can be like wooden staircases and rounded off, or just like industrial, but towers are really cool. And usually like some of the towers have like a bell-shaped top that was where the bell was rung. So I think that's a really cool design, and we don't have that anymore. We just have like plain Jane like architecture. Not to knock on anyone, but it's just not the same. And I like towers. I wish we had more. Since then, it's like, all right, I gotta document all of these spots, because for me, it's just good to have these preserved, because they're gonna be gone at some point, whether it be demolition, fire, arson, well, that's the same thing. Demolition, like renovations, like vandals and all that shit. So for me, it's just like, I just wanna preserve it, whether it be like photo and video, or taking a brick home and putting it on my shelf. Because they're just stuck in time, they're left behind. No one cares for them as much, except for those who are part of the urban exploring community, or even the people that are part of like the preservation societies and all the city and towns, because they're the people that understand the history more than I do, and just like the facts about these places, and seeing like old historic photos of what used to be somewhere. For example, like Main Street, Pawtucket used to have really cool, awesome old buildings, and then the city wiped them all out at one point. And it's just good for me, and I just see it as a way to preserve and hold these memories through photos and videos, and with other people doing like documentary style stuff. All right, so I know that we talked about the fire in 2020, and it was extremely devastating for Pawtucket and Central Falls. But this was not the end of Conant Thread Mill District, because there are still surviving mills here, and they are still in production. And I bring to you a couple, and one of the mill owners you actually have seen on television. So let's dive in. This mill on Pine Street isn't your average run-of-the-mill. I let myself in, and at that moment I was taken away. This was home to Stretch Products. They make elastics products for your every need. There were machines everywhere on the first, second, third, and fourth floor. It was amazing. It honestly was the coolest experience. It was like going to a museum and seeing the history right before my eyes. The machines ranged in years, some newer and some very old. The floors, stairs, hallway, and bathroom architecture looked amazing. The noise inside was pretty overwhelming, but I loved the detail on every machine, and there was a function to every part of the machine. I was just mesmerized by the movement. I couldn't stop staring. There was another section where they dipped the product into a hot chemical and then pressed it out. This room was pretty unbearable, but I really needed to witness the process. Who would have thought that this was going on in the Blackstone Valley? It was honestly one of my favorite explorers to this day, and I have to thank the owners for allowing me to come in whenever I needed to, just so I could get the shot for the doc. Next on the list is Classic Customs. They're a local screen print shop, and they also print Brown University apparel. That was pretty rad to me. If you go into the front section of the store, they have really cool t-shirt designs, but I stayed in the back inside of the mill. It was awesome to see the process of screen printing, especially inside of an old mill. That allows for the space for this type of production. I want to say thank you to the building owner and the owner of Classic Customs for letting me pop in. Alright, last stop. We are visiting Allison from News Channel 10. But there's so much more to learn today, and I'm really excited to see what they do with this building.
My name's Allison Bologna. I'm the founder and executive director of Shri Studio Service Corps and Bark. Since 2010, we've been running outreach yoga and meditation programs for the community at large, anchored in Pawtucket, but we serve more than 8,500 students in the state, and we expect to double that once we move into this building at 390 Pine Street in Pawtucket in the Conant Thread District. When I met Dave, the owner of Tallman Enterprises next door at 392, we were really interested in this building for sure, negotiated on price, but we also had to deal with the remediation outside. And part of that had to do with capping the parking lot, lifting it up, capping it, rebuilding it, and making it safe for the larger community. So thanks to DEM, he received a $250,000 grant, and from that we were able to remediate outside before we closed on January 30th, 2020. And part of our mission here is to save and to honor the history of this building. So when I knew this was one of the only few buildings left that survived the fires, all the more reason to save it. So this building, 390 Pine Street, was called the New Administration Building. So this is essentially where Hezekiah Conant, we believe, worked out of. Payroll came out of this building. It's filled with safes, which we've saved, and safes inside of safes. So 2 of the freestanding safes we're saving for ornamental places in the building. And the safes that were built into the building are being repurposed into a boardroom for our nonprofit and also staircases as well to get to the apartments upstairs. We saved anything we really could that could be repurposed. So while you walk into the building, when we get our certificate of occupancy, you'll walk into what is this building now, which is going to be a creative live, work, wellness community. But behind the stairs that we're saving, will be a mini museum with all the artifacts that we found in the building, and it will honor the history of this building and Conant Thread. And what I think is so important about this neighborhood is that we don't lose sight of our desperate need for affordable housing in the state of Rhode Island. So upstairs we'll have 8 loft-like apartments, 1 and 2 bedroom units, and 5 of them will be 30-year deed restricted and designated as affordable housing units, mixed in with 3 market rate units to really create a live, work, wellness community in a creative way that honors the history of this building.
I think it's just a journey of it. I think everybody has like a place in life that they need to do something. And for me, it's always been, at least now in my life, it's like taking photos. So taking photos of what I love, and what I love is documenting old historic mills. So that's what really drives me, is that now that I have cameras, I got my Canon, I got my, like my Mavic 3, all it is about is just documenting them. And that's what really pushes me within like the last couple of years, like drone photography and documenting architecture, landscapes, and the forgotten is like what I'm driven to, and that's what really gets me going. And I have good friends that do the same mission as me, whether it be like urban exploring and trespassing, or even people that just are so intellectually involved and know so much about the history, like the park rangers. Like I can just sit there and have like hour-long conversations about the history of Slater Mill. So that's what really drives me, is just having all this information around me and all these architecture, and being able to just document it now that I'm at a level where I know that I can do it and I have all the time in the world. That's it. Hey, can I call you back? All right. Yeah.
Step onto a property like this.
Yeah.
What's the first thing that always catches your eye?
Thank you so much, everyone, for checking out episode 2 of Run of the Mill. Be sure to visit runofthemill.shop to learn more about my mission and to visit my store for any drone print needs. Thank you to Jason Allard, Pawtucket Public Library, NBC 10, Blackstone Valley Tourism Council, National Park Services of the Blackstone River Valley, and the Library of Congress for contributing to Run of the Mill 2. I'll see you guys in the next episode.